Benedicta had always been intuitive. As a child, she could sense when something felt off, even when nothing seemed out of place. Years later, that instinct never left her. A top performing marketing executive in Lagos, she was admired for her poise and respected for her results. People called her lucky, but she knew it was just discipline and vigilance. When she first met Alex during a corporate networking event, something unsettled her. He was confident but measured, charming but not overbearing. He knew exactly what to say, and even more when to say nothing. The room seemed to follow his rhythm. Her colleagues loved him instantly, but to Benedicta, his presence felt staged, like a performance tailored to impress. Over the next few weeks, Alex appeared at several of her company's events, always invited by someone else, always casually inserting himself into circles of influence. He would send her occasional emails, well written, thoughtful, never inappropriate, but she felt watched, not in a paranoid way, but like someone had done their research on her, then built a version of themselves to fit the gaps in her armor. Still, there was nothing to accuse, no evidence, no incident, just an increasingly loud alarm in her gut. Alex's presence grew more established in Benedicta's professional world, like water slowly seeping into cracks no one noticed. Within a few months, he wasn't just a familiar face, he had become a quiet influence, a strategic collaborator on a major campaign that brought visibility to both him and the company. He was constantly near, but never overtly intrusive. His genius was in making his proximity seem inevitable. One Friday evening, Benedicta went to her favorite secluded restaurant in Lekki, a place she rarely mentioned to anyone. She hadn't been in weeks, and her visit was spontaneous. As she stepped in, she froze. Alex was seated at the bar, already mid-meal, laughing with the owner like an old regular. When he noticed her, he smiled and lifted his glass. It looked like coincidence, but something tightened in her chest. That place had been her escape, her silence. Now it was contaminated. Another day, while scrolling through Instagram, Benedicta saw a reel Alex had posted, a slow motion clip of him jogging through a stretch of beach road she'd run every Saturday morning, her route. She paused the video and watched it again. The camera panned past a coconut vendor she always greeted, past the quiet bend where she often stopped to stretch. His caption read, "New routines, same Lagos." The overlaps kept coming. One morning, her assistant mentioned that Alex had sent a box of pastries to the team, ones Benedicta had once brought in from a small bakery in Sudror. The assistant smiled,
He said you recommended the place.
but she hadn't. She had never said anything about it out loud. It became harder to breathe. On a Monday, she opened her calendar to find that her meeting with a high priority client had vanished. Panicked, she contacted the team, only to discover the meeting had gone ahead without her. She had never received the updated link. The client had been disappointed. She checked her sent emails and discovered a cancellation request she couldn't remember sending. Benedicta visited IT. They said everything looked normal, no signs of external interference. But her access log showed someone with admin clearance had entered her account late at night 3 times in the past month. It was subtle, nothing deleted, just viewed. She documented it. No names, just timestamps. Over time, the team's perception of her began to shift. It started with curious looks when she forgot details. Then came whispered remarks about her needing rest. Reports she swore she sent were now mysteriously unfinished. Charts she had completed the night before appeared blank. It was always minor enough to be human error, but constant enough to make her look unstable. Meanwhile, Alex flourished. His work was polished. He filled in smoothly during her lapses, taking lead in meetings she once dominated. The trust she had built over years now subtly shifted toward him. He never took credit. He just helped where needed. Once during a client dinner, Benedicta felt dizzy. It wasn't the wine. She had barely taken a sip. Her head felt heavy, like cotton. She excused herself. and stepped into the restroom. There, she gripped the sink and stared at her reflection. Her face looked pale, her lips dry, her phone buzzed. A calendar reminder popped up.
Mental health leave. Consider applying.
She never created that alert. She returned to the table. Alex was speaking gently to the client, gesturing to a chart she had made, but slightly modified. Her name wasn't on the footer. The client was nodding approvingly. Her hands trembled beneath the table. By the end of that month, HR invited her for a wellness conversation. They were concerned. Her performance had been declining. Her teammates were worried. They offered flexible time off. She smiled politely, thanked them, and walked back to her desk. Inside, she felt herself unraveling, but not from weakness, from the precision of what was happening to her, from the invisible strings someone was pulling behind her back. And the scariest part wasn't what Alex had done, it was how no one else seemed to see it. Benedicta didn't wait for HR's flexible time of offer to become a formal intervention. She preempted it. With a well drafted email citing burnout and personal health, she applied for a temporary leave. Outwardly, she played the responsible professional seeking rest. Inwardly, she was peeling herself away from a suffocating illusion. She packed lightly and moved to her sister's flat in Ibadan without alerting anyone from work. No status updates, no check-ins, no explanations. She deactivated all her social media accounts, switched to a burner phone, bought a second-hand laptop with no connection to her cloud drives. Her instinct was sharp now, not just a whisper, but a scream. Alex wasn't watching her. He was inside her digital life, perhaps even rewriting parts of her world. Days passed in silence, then weeks. In that quiet, Benedicta began reconstructing a mental map, piecing together every coincidence, every strange event, every moment she questioned her own memory. She created a wall chart, pinning down incidents and layering them with colored strings. She wrote timestamps, device logs, changes in team behavior, and the sequence of subtle sabotages. Her journal filled with things others would call paranoia, but she was done doubting herself. One night, she scrolled through her old work laptop, the only device she hadn't used since leaving Lagos. As she stared at a presentation she'd made weeks ago, she noticed an image inserted at the bottom of a slide, a photo of a beach path from her Saturday running route. It had never been part of the original file. It was faint, barely noticeable unless zoomed in. Her heart raced. She reached out to a discreet cybersecurity expert she found through a Women in Tech network. He worked anonymously. She paid upfront. Within a few days, his report came back. Her work laptop had been compromised through remote admin level access. No viruses, just unauthorized entry using legitimate credentials. Someone had been in her machine, opening, editing, scheduling, deleting. The implications chilled her. Someone with access to her internal system had systematically adjusted things, not to destroy her, but to weaken her, like slowly eroding the foundation of a house until it collapsed on its own. And Alex was the only constant throughout that timeline. Armed with the report, Benedicta contacted her company's HR and legal team. The evidence was technical and indirect. It showed intrusion, yes, but not who had done it. They reviewed it with caution, made all the right noises, and promised to look into it further. But their tone was clear: no direct accusation, no investigation of a well-performing partner like Alex without hard proof. The most devastating part wasn't their inaction. It was the subtle doubt in their expressions, the hesitation in their words, the cautious tone of people who weren't sure if they were speaking to a victim or a liability. She left the office that day with no justice and no closure. Her hands trembled as she returned to her temporary flat. In the mirror, she barely recognized her own face, drawn distant but still standing,